Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for tuning into Word Boost. Hey, little sister. I'm Marshelle Barwise, and today I'm doing a Q&A for a question I received. So here's a question. I work at a call center. I don't want to be unemployed, but I feel like my life is wasting away every day I sit in my cubicle. How do you decide when it's time to leave a situation or when it's time to leave a situation? All right. So that's a really good question. And I've been in that situation so many times on many occasions, if I'm being honest. And if you're out there and you're watching this and you can relate, I want you to drop "I can relate" in the comments, okay? Now, in short, I believe that some of the greatest leaders the world will ever see that are being developed in jobs that many people think are insignificant or unimportant. And I think that's what makes those roles useful in like building up character. Now, I get it. The queen in you might be like, oh, why am I doing this? I'm wasting away. I have dreams. I have goals. I want my kingdom now. Whether that's you want to own your own business or you just see yourself in more of a prominent role. I get it. But the way God does things is different. The world might be focused and telling you to build up your credentials, but God is focused on your character. And so what I would say is start by asking God whether or not he actually sent you to this job to begin with. And if you're still supposed to be there, because if he did send you, then that means that it's for a purpose and there's value in you being there. But in some cases, just speaking from my own personal experience, my own desires, just getting tired of waiting or desperate for money. I need income. I need to make ends meet, led me into positions and places that God never told me to go into. And what happened? I ended up frustrated and feeling trapped. I was irritated with people. I just wasn't my best self, which I don't want to see happen to you. Because you're not going to ever be able to be your best self when you're outside of the will of God. And so I'm trusting that God will give you confirmation on whether or not the position is for you, and he'll provide you with a sign. Now, when you ask God, hey, am I supposed to be here, or was I ever supposed to be here? And if the answer is no, then the next question you would want to ask God is, okay, then God, what is the best exit strategy to get out of this job? Whether it's, putting in a resignation today or, because if say, hey, you're supposed to leave a month ago or something like that, then maybe time is of the essence. Now, I personally recommend putting a 2-week notice in because I never say leave a situation in an unprofessional manner or abruptly if you can help it. From a personal, situation, just to give you an example from my life, at one time I worked at this insurance company, this really good insurance company, very reputable. It was a great job. Actually, it was the best job I had had at that point in my life. Through that job, I was able to get my first house. I was able to purchase a brand new car for the first time when I worked there. Everything seemed so good. But before I left, there was a point where I was so stressed and I was dealing with anxiety all the time. I would have heart racing, all kinds of crazy things. And I really couldn't attach why this was happening to me out of the blue. It felt all out of the blue. And so one day I felt like, you know what? Something seems wrong. I don't think I should be here anymore. And it's because when I was driving on my way to work, which is one of my favorite times, at that time, my commute was probably about 45 minutes. And so it gave me time to just be in the quiet, to pray, to listen to songs, to do some self-talk. If you don't do some self-talk or you don't talk to yourself, you better start. I love talking to myself so I can work out my thoughts and, just really flesh out what I'm thinking. But in that moment, I remember having a thought pop in my mind, and I believe it was God. And the thought was, what's inside of you can't stay here. And so based upon that, I was like, well, I don't know what that means. It means I can't stay in the place I'm living. I can't stay in the city, the job. It could be so many things. It could be a relationship. I can't stay here. What does that mean? And so I was unclear. But what I did do is I wrote a resignation letter. Now, I wrote that resignation letter, but I sat on it for 3 months because I didn't have much time to look for a new job. And I was raised you don't leave a job until you have a new job. Period. If you can relate, let me know. But I was told hey, you don't do that. That's irresponsible. That's just how I was raised. But one day when I was getting ready for work, I just feel like God was telling me today is the day. You've been sitting on this resignation letter for too long. And I felt like he was giving me confirmation that my journey at this place of work had come to an end. So when I got in that morning, my boss told me, hey, Marshelle, I'm going to speak with you. That was not normal. So I kind of took that as another source of confirmation that this is supposed to happen. I'm supposed to leave here and resign. And so when she brought me in there, she was like, all right, well, how about you go ahead and go first? Because I told her I wanted to tell her something too. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm resigning. I'm putting in my 2-week notice. She was like, oh, it was actually pretty funny when I think about it. She made like this movie sound gasp. I mean, she could have won an award in the way that she reacted. I mean, but I think she was really shocked because she told me she was planning on giving me a special project. And in her eyes, she seen me as committed and I was going to have a long-term career there. And she didn't see it coming, even though my path and my career experience there wasn't always like smooth or squeaky clean. And truthfully, there was a point where I did feel that way, that I thought I was going to be there for a very long time. But, you know, life happens. Shifts take place in your life. And I heard that morning, clearly, what's inside of you can't stay here. I was confused on exactly what that meant, but it came to like the place where I knew this is what it was. Maybe that's what God's saying to you. And so on that last day, when I had officially left and it was done, I remember getting in my car driving like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, God, I need you to help me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have a job and I still have bills. And so I went to go meet up with my family for my nephew's birthday to celebrate. And when I got to the restaurant, I met up with an old dance friend. And she was doing great. She had did some choreography and she was working, doing some shows in Las Vegas, and she was about to have a baby. And she was just really happy about where she was in her life. And she had randomly mentioned that she knew a studio owner that was looking for a dance teacher. And I pretty much got the job that was open for that position like that day, within a few hours, and not even a few hours, an hour or so from leaving that job by faith, based upon what I believe God was telling me to do. I was already with the new job. It was like the job found me. I didn't have to go out looking for the job. And within a few years down the line from that, my life had completely changed. I sold my house. I moved to a different part of the city. I got a better paying job. I started to make side income doing things I enjoyed. I met my husband. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. All right. And so I always think to myself, what if I would have continued to procrastinate? Or maybe when she said, hey, I'm going to give you a special project and, you know, which could have meant more money and more opportunity, I started to rationalize like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't resign, and started second guess what I believe God was telling me. Who knows where I would be right now? And I'm very happy with who I am and where I'm at in my life because I believe I'm right where God has me. So I tell you all of that because it could be that your restlessness in this position is happening because what's inside of you isn't meant to stay there any longer. All right. So if that's the case, and that's what you feel God tells you, he confirms that, you definitely want to move on with what God tells you to do and move out of that position. Because if you do what he says, you'll see what he can do. But if you don't, you never will. Now, the flip side, if it turns out once you ask God, okay, if you sent me here, am I supposed to be here? And the confirmation you receive is yes, it could turn out that this job is supposed to be where the job is where you're supposed to be right now. And I believe that nothing in life is wasted unless you allow it to be. So my advice would be to stay intentional about strengthening your skills and using your time to get better while you're in that role, and focus on what you're supposed to be learning from this position that's going to help prepare you for the dream position and the next phase that you desire to have for your life. So for example, if it's a customer service role that you're working in, make it a daily challenge to set yourself apart from your peers. You know, like if you ever want to be CEO or a business owner or have some type of leadership role, put in the same effort, the same attitude, and show the same work ethic you'd want your future employees to have when they work for you, right? Because remember, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. So if you want to have really hardworking, dedicated people helping to build the vision and the dreams that you have in your heart, later on down the line, then go ahead and start sowing that right now where you're at and be committed to that. And look at it like, okay, I'm doing this for the future me. I'm doing this for my future dreams, okay? Another great example, not from my personal life, but from David in the Bible. David was told that he'd be the king of Israel when he was a shepherd. All right, so a shepherd is out in the field. It's hot. They're out there with them sheep like, bah, all day. It stinks. In a wool coat, fighting bears and lions. I mean, I'm just trying to paint the picture so that you see what he was experiencing. It wasn't a glamorous job. It wasn't a position anybody wanted to have. Well, then he ended up later on serving in the kingdom under the king for years. So imagine, that you were told you're going to be this great person, this king, a queen specifically, right? And you're still having to serve as a shepherd. And then you get a promotion, but you end up in the kingdom, but you're not the king, you're serving the king. And so you have to sit there and watch the king be in the seat that you believe that you're destined to be in. Now, I mean, some people get frustrated with that and they start trying to conspire and backbite and, do anything to move that person out by their own strength and own devices. But don't do that. Don't do that. I'm telling you, God does things different. And the reason why I believe that David had to go that route, instead of it being like, hey, you're supposed to be the king. All right, let's put a robe on him. Let's put him in the seat. Because I think God wanted him to have the heart of a good king before he received the title of king. Because we've seen what happened with the other king, Saul, right? He was told you're going to be king and he got the title pretty much instantly, right? In the end, he was set on doing things his own way and he wasn't for doing things God's way, in which God's way is always about the people. It's not just about the one person. It's about the people as a whole. And so it's really important that David had, the right heart. His heart was positioned and committed to being a good king who cared about people before he got the title. The Bible says the humble will be exalted. So we don't want to be humble. I mean, the truth is a lot of people don't want to be in humble positions or be humiliated. It's like if all your friends got all these big time jobs and you got laid off, and now because you got to make ends meet, you got to work at a fast food restaurant, you might be like, oh, I don't want nobody to see me in my fast food outfit or whatever, right? A lot of times we find like certain things we're told in a certain age, if you're in a certain group or you have a certain type of reputation, you got to fit this mold. And when we don't fit that mold, there's embarrassment that goes along with it, right? That's humbling. I remember when I was resigning from my job, I actually felt the Lord originally before that told me to sell my house. And I did not want to do that. I mean, I love my house. I had the furniture, the bed, everything I've always wanted in my house. And I was actually embarrassed to put it on the market at that time because I thought people would think that I couldn't afford to pay my bills. And so I was dealing with this humiliation, so to speak. But I do remember that God told me he was taking me through a season of humility. Well, why does he take you through a season of humility? He wants to exalt you. He takes you to a humble place to exalt you. And so I'm saying all that because it could be that doing the work that doesn't get you much recognition is being used to build your character to position you for greater. Because I believe that those are the type of roles. And when people work those roles and they're committed and they do it and they learn what they're supposed to learn and they give what they're supposed to give while they're there, those are the people who end up being great leaders because they know what it's like to be in the shoes of those who may not have much in life, right? And they lead with honor and they lead with integrity, which makes people love to serve alongside them. And so God put you in that place. If he did, and he comes back with, hey, this is where you're supposed to be, I want you to change your perspective. Don't look at it as just a cubicle. Because if you go in every day like, oh, I'm just here in this cubicle, of course you're going to be miserable. You're going to be like, let me count down the time because I've been there. You're going to be like, okay, 60, 59, 50. I mean, I've been there, being honest. It took me a while to get my mind here. But instead of viewing it as a cubicle, I want you to look at it as a place of purpose where your character and your conduct are being developed to prepare you for greatness. And if you go in every day and you look at it like every single customer you talk to, okay, I'm preparing to serve my customers in the future. Right? I'm learning how to treat them well before they become my customers. I'm learning how to do things right and spend well before it becomes my money and before it becomes my business finances. Learning how to do things the good way so that you will have a good heart, a good set of skills, a good conduct, a good reputation because you're branding yourself right now. Cubicle or not, we're all branding ourselves. It doesn't matter. You're branding yourself. Okay? And what you're trying to do is establish a good name. Okay? That's what you want. And as you establish a good name, the right opportunities, I believe, will open up for you, okay? And God will transition you from place to place to place. And who knows, you might be transitioned from place to place within the same company. It might be outside of the company. It might be your company. And beyond just the company, having character and having conduct, good quality conduct is good in life. It's good in life, making connections and making relationships that are valuable, that last beyond just jobs and making money, because life is greater and bigger than that. It's about leaving an impact and making a difference and doing what God destined you to do, which is going to be great. Okay, I can't stress that enough. I already told you that before. I'm going to keep telling you it's going to be great. All right. So I hope I gave you some things to think about. I tried to answer that question, obviously, to redirect you back to God. And honestly, let me just say this. I would caution you to be careful if you have voices or advisors in your life that are always like, this is exactly what you need to do. Right? Because what may have worked for me and may have happened for me or to me may not be what's going to happen in your life. I can say for this situation, I've been on both sides of this where, on one side, it was time for me to go, but I kept procrastinating. And later on, I seen the benefits of leaving. And I think back like, wow, what if I didn't? Right. And I'm glad I didn't have to find out. And then there's times where I wanted to leave a position, but God was like, nope, this is stretching you and it's helping prepare you for the things I have ahead for you. And so I've been on both sides, and really it all comes down to just knowing God's timing and knowing what he's saying to you. And in the end, it will all work together. All right. You guys know what it is. I'm Marshelle. I'm here. I got your back. Word boost. Hey, little sister. Every Thursday, 4 p.m. Make sure you share this with a friend or tell somebody. I mean, especially if they come to you and they're like, oh my gosh, this cubicle or this job, and you think this is going to speak to them, shoot it on over to them. Okay. God bless you guys, and see you next Thursday.